Good morning and welcome to this Wednesday, July 9th edition of Keystroke Live. Thank you all for coming. I do have everyone muted and we'll unmute at the end for questions, but that makes it a little easier as we go along. And if you do have a question, you can enter it in the chat and hopefully Nick will keep an eye on that to let me know. And this is Keystroke Live every Wednesday, same login credentials, same place. Today we're talking about payment security, and there's a lot of talk with EMV and point-to-point or end-to-end encryption. And really the goal is security, and a lot of this is just common sense stuff. Be secure, do things intentionally, think about things, write down procedures. Your job is technology, but the security is day to day. It's more of a PCI will say it's a state of mind. You can be compliant one day and not compliant the next just by changing things. So it's not just a point of time passing a test. It's an ongoing procedure. There are out of scope solutions with our end-to-end encryption, and also PCI will tell you if you don't do it electronically, you don't have anything to worry about. We're going to talk about secure implementation of keystroke and keypay, related systems, networks, so that you are capable of knowing how to get it set up and installed in a PCI compliant manner. And we also are going to talk about a lot of critical items that are in the Keystroke POS implementation guide, shipped with every copy of Keystroke. It's located in the docs subdirectory. It will be you'll be prompted to look at it when you install Keystroke now, especially if it has been updated. The PCI is Payment Card Industry Security Code Council, and the council doesn't validate or enforce anything. It's really up to the card brands. So it's not us, it's not Mercury, it's more of the card brands that really set the rules, and the council was set up by Visa, MasterCard, Discover, and American Express. Remember, there are the PCI DSS, the PCI Data Security Standard Digital Dozen, that tell you to build and maintain a secure network, protect cardholder data, maintain a vulnerability management program, as well as implement strong access control measures, monitor and test networks, and maintain information security policy. We're not going to talk about all of that today. We're mostly talking about how it applies to Keystroke. So that's data security, access control are really the two big topics for today. Here is a diagram, and I will take this time to mention with the email yesterday, there were links to our implementation guide and to this slideshow in case this is a little bit small here, this illustration. But it's a typical network installation where you have workstations, a data server, and a payment processing server. Data server doesn't have access to the network, to the internet, but the payment processing server does, so that your data is isolated from the internet. Here is the data flow diagram for Keystroke, where data basically flows from the workstations to the DLL API, that's KeyPay basically, and then there is a black line on the drawing there. That's when it leaves the secure cardholder environment, goes out over the internet to Mercury. Mercury transmits the information onto the back-end clearinghouse or processor, Global, then back to Mercury or Cayenne, and back to the POS workstations. So that's how the data actually flows. It's a little bit different with Cayenne and the Genius device, because the actual cardholder data never flows through Keystroke. It flows from the Cayenne device, from the Genius device to Cayenne and then to their back end. So we're going to talk about some specific points of PADSS, that's Payment Application Data Security Standard. That's what applies to us. Um, in it, there'll be some information about PCI DSS, Payment Card Industry Data Security Standards. That's for the merchants. So one is that you need to always delete stored sensitive authentication data. That is the card swipe, card verification code, PIN number, not to be confused with PAN, primary account number, or personal account number. That's just the 16-digit number off a Visa card or 15-digit number off an American Express card. So you need to delete it. Well, we've never stored it, so there's nothing to configure within Keystroke to delete that. There is historical data from before KeyPay existed that was stored in Keystroke, so you need to be sure to purge that data in Keystroke or in backups. Does happen automatically when you upgrade, but to purge it, and I'm going to switch over to Keystroke now. Basically, when you're in the Sales Manager, you go to the Closeout, and in Closeout, under Closeout, there is a Purge Payment Options, and this will purge payments dated on or before a certain date. You can specify that date in parameters. So if I run this, it's going to go through my data files. Didn't find anything because I had it purged. If I look under parameters, here I have the last time I did the purge and what I want my intervals to be and things like that. So that here's where that happens. If you're using KeyPay, it doesn't matter because no primary account numbers, PAN or SAD data is stored in Keystroke. It's all tokenized. It's all representation of the numbers. So you don't have to worry about that. But where you would be concerned is on backups or historical data that is out someplace else. Remember, this is necessary for PCI compliance. The other thing, it's very important to delete any sensitive authentication data or track data gathered for troubleshooting. We never collect that. We don't want it. It's just, we never use it for testing. We never use it for troubleshooting. So you only should collect it to solve a specific problem, keep it in a known location, and then encrypt it and delete it when you're done with it. Any cardholder data needs to be securely deleted after a customer-defined retention period. So your customers need to have a defined retention period for data. With KeyPay, it saves it for 72 hours and then gets rid of it. No configuration, no settings. So it will delete that after 72 hours. And then if you do keep data longer than your customer defined retention period, you must delete it. And that the cardholder data that Keystroke is storing is encrypted and it's stored in the KeyPay data directory, which is specified in the KeyPay settings in the files kptemp and kprec.dat. So it's securely deleted after 72 hours out of KeyPay. The data stored in kprec.dat, that is the recurring data, and you just need to be sure to delete any stored transactions that you're not using anymore after your customer defined retention period. If it's valid business and you've got ongoing billing for that customer year after year, it's okay to keep that. It's just if you no longer are using it for business purposes, you need to delete it after the retention period. And then it's basically to delete that, you do that in Keystroke by deleting the recurring transaction or the payment on the recurring transaction in Keystroke. If you're using PC Charge and third-party payment integration, the data is stored in PCCW.mdb and PCCWHIST.mdb that are in the program files, Active Charge, or PCCW directory. And there is a utilities menu you can go to in PC Charge and select that archive purge, and that will purge the data. So also, oh, my audio connection was lost and then restored. Also,
Dave, it looks as though there's no audio and you're muted.
have you heard me say anything?
Oh. No, you muted yourself somehow. I just noticed there was no audio, so I looked over at the.
Okay, looks like I'm back now.
You're back. You're back.
Okay. Also, in that utilities menu in PC Charge for the transaction archive purge, you need to turn on that at startup prompt to purge so that data isn't kept indefinitely and that it is purged on an ongoing basis. You need to mask the PAN, that's the account number, when displayed. Keystroke masks it everywhere, and then again, when it's saved in Keystroke, it's tokenized, so it's not really the account number, it's not the PAN, it's a representation of it. There is one case in Keystroke where you can see the PAN, and that is you can unmask it when you're manually entering a credit card. You don't have to do that, but you can do that if you do need to. If you ever do need to access a PAN, you can call Mercury Merchant Warehouse and they can get the information for you. Render it unreadable where stored. So again, in Keystroke, it's tokenized. In KeyPay, it's encrypted, so it is unreadable. The logging, export, and report functions all put out tokenized or masked data, so that you'll see the first four and last four of the card number, but not everything else. Now we're going to talk about encryption keys, which currently KeyPay has always used randomly generated rotating keys to encrypt it. So it was very secure and very difficult to crack because the keys are always changing. The PADSS compliance has to be a little different. So we have to actually generate keys because you have to be able to delete the keys and recreate the keys. We still randomly generate the keys, and when I say keys, there is a data encrypting key and then a key encrypting key to encrypt the data encrypting key. We generate those automatically, but they can be changed. And so we use self-generated keys so nobody really has access to it, and it's only in one location. They're never distributed. No interaction is required. You should regenerate the keys every year so that it doesn't reach its full crypto period. So that's just the number of times the key's been used. After you've used it a certain number of times, you lose some randomness with it. And to do that, you go into KeyPay, and this is version 8 KeyPay. And here I am going to go into settings. I have to put in my password. And here in the Keystroke payment module, this is version 8. You see it's more or less the same. But now we have an option here for change cryptographic keys. So basically, to regenerate your keys, you just click this. It tells you what you're doing. You have to enter yes to proceed. And it has completed the cryptographic key. So it's re-encrypted everything that it had stored and securely deleted the old keys. Pretty simple, but it is a process they want you to be aware of, that there are these encryption keys that you need to watch out for. And then the old key is irretrievable. We don't know what it was. It's not stored anywhere. This is a sample of a key custodian form. So whoever clicks the button to change cryptographic keys needs to understand that they are a key custodian, and there are responsibilities and security issues that go along with that. You need to use unique user IDs and secure authentication for administrative access. So just like in Keystroke right now, if you don't have administrator privileges, you don't have to have complex passwords. You can get in and out. If you do, you need to follow the PCI password rules, 7 characters, letters and numbers at least, and change it every 90 days. So Keystroke and KeyPay now are going to enforce secure changes to default accounts and accounts as you install and enter Keystroke. So you will be required to enter password for tutor data and put in a secure password as you go into Keystroke. And this is at least as rigorous as PCI. You can make it more rigorous if you want to include capital letters and other characters. So remember, this is a requirement for all sample data. Default users will have these requirements for user IDs. Those credentials are managed by Keystroke, and that security is managed by Keystroke in the configuration manager. So you don't really need to do anything because we've set it to be at least as secure as PCI. You would only want to do something if you wanted to make it a little more complex. So there is no configuration that you or the end user needs to do. You need to use these unique IDs also for if you're logging on to Windows, logging on to a server, logging on for remote access. Remember, you need that unique user IDs and secure authentication. So you need to be sure audit trails are implemented and logging is going on, and Keystroke does all of the PCI DSS and PA DSS required logging automatically, and you can't turn it off. Some of those are audit entries. Some of that is logging done by KeyPay that is stored in the logs directory below the KeyPay data directory. So you don't need to set up anything in addition to the default logging. This is implement and communicate versioning methodology. And so in the implementation guide that I've got printed out right here, I had sent out with the email for Keystroke Live, there is a detailed description of our versioning methodology. And basically there is a whole number version 8. There is a 2-digit number like 8.01, and then there's a build 8.0120. So those whole number releases are normally 3 to 5 years apart. They're major changes to file structure or keystroke. The fractional numbers are more frequently and would indicate a portion of the major release. There could be security changes that affect PADSS and PCI. So those numbers changing could indicate a security change. And then the minor releases that are the build numbers, they would not affect security changes. So those build numbers typically aren't going to do that. So it's going to be like going from 8.0 to 8.01. So there's remember the changes affecting PADSS are not made in build number releases. So that's just different changes. And there's plenty of information in the implementation guide on all of our versioning methodology. Lastly, you can't use wildcards for anything that would affect PCI security. So we'll never say version 8x. So we might say version 8.0x because you can't use a wildcard to represent a software that had been changed for PCI DSS or PADSS. Now we're going to talk about some access control. So be sure you securely implement wireless technology. Keystroke has no wireless technology built into it, or we don't require it. So it doesn't affect Keystroke. We don't necessarily recommend you use it on a secure environment where cardholder data is existing. If you do use it, be sure you change the default encryption keys, passwords, and also change those anytime anyone that with knowledge of it leaves the company or changes positions, just so it maintains security. You want to be sure you have a firewall that will deny traffic, that you're using strong encryption, that any vendor supplied defaults are removed, and that the access is restricted to only known and authorized devices. And with Keystroke version 8 and KeyPay, it's necessary to use only secure services, protocols, components, hardware, hashes, ciphers. You need to use secure ones. Keystroke will now automatically disable unsecure services, protocols, and hashes. That includes SSL, TLS 1.0. So it may affect if you're using maybe an old banking website, that it may affect the access there. But I think everybody's getting things updated. These have been known security vulnerabilities for a long time. So, but just be aware there is some changes in version 8 where we will disable unsecure protocols, ciphers, and hashes. You should store cardholder data on servers not connected to the internet, like our typical network installation diagram, where you have a data server that's not on the network, and then the payment server that has access to the data server and access to the internet so that it can authorize cards. So it should be in a secure internal network, and firewall services should be used. Direct traffic shouldn't be trusted, and outbound traffic should only be trusted segments and business required access. So Keystroke uses internet communications on port 443. If you're doing remote access, you need to be sure to implement two-factor authentication. We don't require use of that, so there's nothing you need to do within Keystroke. So outside from the customer network, you need a username and then something like a token, certificate, something else, so that it's two-factor authentication. And your access to a customer's network environment should only be when you provide service. You shouldn't always have access. You shouldn't leave it open. We are striving to securely deliver updates. We've added some additional certificate and digital signature checking when you install Keystroke and download it. So we do that via the Keystroke update installer. We're checked for tampering, and you don't have to have remote access to do that. It can be downloaded from the public network. If you're using remote access software, it needs to be securely implemented. Again, that's changing default settings, only allowing known connections, encrypting data, lockout on too many password attempts. Be sure you're logging it, and do it when it's necessary. Those are all points of PCI DSS and PA DSS. That you need to be sure that cardholder data is secure when transmitting it over public networks. We do that because we take the cardholder data and transmit it across the internet, and we do that securely via the DataCap Mercury Payments DSI client. It's going to be DSI EMV shortly here. HTTPS, and the PC charge is, I think it's sim.dll is what that uses. And these use technologies that are PADSS validated. They use strong encryption, and they're very secure. So remember, as I said before, we do disable TLS 1.0 SSL and ciphers with less than 128 bits and hashes using MD5. But there is no configuration you need to do to disable all that, or that the customer needs to do. Encrypt cardholder data over end user messaging technology. This is basically emailing credit card numbers, and as resellers, you should advise everyone to never email credit card numbers. If you do, that needs to be secure and encrypted. And you need to be sure non-console administrative access is encrypted. Keystroke doesn't require that. So be sure that if you're doing it, you use at least 128-bit encryption and two-factor authentication. RDP, you have to use the high encryption setting on the server, and be sure that you're always using strong, secure encryption technologies. That was a lot of information on PADSS and PCI. I am going to unmute everyone and see if you've got any questions.
I think they're still absorbing it all.
It's a lot of information, and it's a lot about, as you see, it's a lot more than just keystroke. It's environment. We didn't even get into the PCI requirements for having policies and documentation on all of this stuff too. So that's where even end users are supposed to have a book, document, kind of like our implementation guide, but it's their security policies. So there's a lot to it. Remember though, the goal is security.
Good morning. Hey, I'm just finishing up a webinar. Can I call you right back?
And I thought Randy was saying good morning to me. Well, thank you for...
I apologize.
Oh, no worries. Thank you for attending today. I appreciate you being here. I am going to send out a follow-up email that has the recording of this and the links again, so keep your eyes peeled for that, so that if you need to check it out or review, it is easy to do. But we will see you next week, where I'm going to talk a little bit more just about Keystroke and installing the Keystroke payment module and getting that set up. So I look forward to talking to you next week.